I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show we have Simon Davis, the co-founder and CEO of Mighty Bear Games. Simon, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time today.
Hi, thanks for having me on here. It's good to be on.
You're very welcome. Excited to dive into Web3 Gaming. I know you and your team were just at the GDC conference, and I feel like gaming is one of these, top, most interesting, most exciting parts of Web3, and that could definitely bring in millions, if not hundreds of millions of people into blockchain. So I'm excited to get your insights. Let's just kick off from the top to start off with, a little bit about what you and your team have built at Mighty Bear Games, and then we'll dive into all the intricacies.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to share that. So Mighty Bear was founded in early 2017. So we've been running now for just over 6 years. The core of the team actually originally came from a company called King. King is the originator of Candy Crush. So it's a team with a very kind of strong pedigree in Web2 gaming. I've been in the industry for close to 20 years. And since founding the company, we've shipped like 5 different games in the last 4 years. 2 notable releases. One was a game we made with Apple called Battle Royale. That was a food fight game. So you have a tsunami of butter coming in, you hit people with baguettes, there's a sausage cannon. It's very fun. Kids really liked it. Sorry. And the other thing we found was that it got attention actually kind of from the wider media as well. So, we had a pretty good relationship with Disney going back some time. And so off the back of the work we did with Apple on Battle Royale, we managed to land a collaboration with Disney. We made a game called Disney Melee Mania, which was like a League of Legends type game. A MOBA with 16 different Disney Pixar IPs, and these characters can all fight together and collaborate. And then, sometime in, I want to say like late 2021, I could see where the games industry was going. And, someone that's been making free-to-play games as a service for a long time, I understood like instinctively how important the concept of asset ownership can be to players. I used to make MMOs, and, you see players trading these goods that don't have any kind of real intrinsic value and no transferability for thousands of dollars on the gray market. So I've been in crypto since 2015, and I started to see what was happening with NFTs, and it just made a lot of sense to me. So as a studio, we've been all in on Web3 since really the beginning of 2022. We announced a token raise last year, which was led by Framework Ventures, which is, a very established firm in the space. And now in the end of 2022, we actually did the first playable for Mighty Action Heroes, which is the game that we're releasing this year. It's a battle royale game inspired by 80s and 90s action movies. It's very fun. Like there's little nods there to, a lot of those kind of classic movies from the era. And it's been really good actually sitting down with the team and educating them on films like Terminator and Rambo and Predator. I'm so old that I didn't, I just assumed that everyone had seen those films. So it's quite interesting actually working with younger people and kind of onboarding them to that. And then this year, we've been doing more and more work on Mighty Action Heroes. And so we actually just had a play test that ended. That was for holders of our Big Bear Syndicate NFTs. But you're going to start seeing kind of bigger and more inclusive play tests in the months ahead, as well as other developments that we have in the pipeline.
Wow, that's a great backstory. Thank you for explaining, and great partnerships with these major companies on those games. I'm more than excited to see this Mighty Action Hero game launch. And now, going all in on the Web3 side of gaming, and obviously asset ownership is important. I'm curious on, to what extent and that you see the most value added, and how can you incorporate it into Mighty Bear's games, in a way that doesn't take away from any of the things that people already love about the games, the gameplay or the user experience, but balances, having in all those digital assets and all the cool stuff in Web3 without getting too carried away and just, focusing on just the token and sort of losing the part of the gameplay.
Yeah, I think you're right. To your point, over financialization of games is a real issue in our space, and so it's a real cliche on like crypto Twitter. People are, you just need fun games, but it's like it's a bit more nuanced than that. But the truth is that a lot of the games we've had so far have not been that fun. Like they've kind of been almost like yield farming disguised. And so for us, we do have a very strong pedigrees as game developers going back decades. And so I've no kind of fears on that front. I think the interesting challenge, and it's one that I think other studios are starting to run into, is like, if you want to create a game that's truly accessible and that you can really onboard millions of players, like, how important is a lot of the kind of, parts of the traditional Web3 ethos, like decentralization, to you? And so, like, I think there has to be a little bit of a trade-off, to be honest. Like, if you want things to be accessible and for millions of people to be able to get them, you have to present them in a way that's really easily understood and where the user experience is seamless. And, the infrastructure and the tech is not quite there from a user's perspective. So for us, these are a lot of the problems we're trying to solve and mitigate. And so there's some interesting kind of considerations we're really going into there to try and create an experience which, like you say, like, is truly fun, and you don't, the kind of on-chain stuff doesn't get in the way, but it's more additive. And so I'm excited just to see what happens when players have assets they can trade freely. And we're also looking at, we have a lot of fun things we're doing with our NFTs, but you're going to be able to perhaps merge NFTs to create new assets, and maybe there'll be something like a fusion system as well built into that. We've been talking about, I think it's been announced, so I can talk about it, but we even have a locking mechanism for NFTs, but you accumulate like in-game currency based on how long you've held them as well, and that can be redeemed for in-game items. But we're trying to really gamify the whole NFT collection part of it as well, and plug that into the game in a way which kind of makes sense and is seamless.
Very cool. And one thing that I like about the NFT side of it is that you can find the true fans of the games, and you can also release it before the full game exists. So you sort of get the community involved before the game launched, and like that's something that hasn't really been as possible with these other major releases. To actually get people involved, at least financially. Is that what you and your team have done? There's already NFTs out of some sorts before the main launch.
Yes, we released a Genesis Pass last year, which is for all of the games that we make in our ecosystem. So we have an ecosystem called the Mighty Net, Mighty Bear Rate. And so, like, Mighty Action Heroes is the first game in the ecosystem. So holders of that would get NFTs in all our future releases. And then Mighty Action Heroes has just a limited, I think it's just a 5K PFP collection that we did just to onboard the first 5,000 kind of players. And it was very, very cheaply priced. I think we priced it at like, it was 0.01337 ETH, which was about like $8-9 at that time. Yeah, you see what we did there. And it was fun. Like, people have been stacking them and getting involved in the play tests. And I think by having a price that was, because the problem with the free mints is that you just get a lot of people who just want to dump them immediately. So just by having a very small price, we actually managed just to get the kind of right community in there. And so it's still very early days for the project. We're still growing, but I'm very excited because we, like you say, we have a very engaged fan base that gives us a lot of feedback and is building with us. They're essentially, a part of the wider dev team.
And starting full-time 2022, there was quite the craze of NFTs throughout 21 and the original hype of just people getting excited about this technology. Have you seen throughout this year so far, and with gaming, I know you were just at the conference. I'm curious, is there growing and still major interest in NFTs wanting to be in all of these kind of games, or do you have any insights from just the overall gaming industry on how quickly they want to make this the main thing in gaming?
Yeah, it's a nuanced picture. Like, it's not consistent across the board. I'd say that all the big studios, I mean, you can see it. Like, Sony just registered a patent, which is basically like transferring NFTs. All the Japanese publishers and the Koreans are really looking at this very aggressively, and they've made moves and they've announced moves. One of the things that this games industry has taught me in all the time I've been in it is that it happens in Korea and then it happens in the West like 6-7 years later. And so we're seeing this play out right now in Web3. And so, like, the Asian studios are generally like going pretty hard, and the Western studios are taking more of a wait and see approach, which is a bit sad because it's a bit like mobile. They're going to be playing catch up in 6 years. But I mean, to your point, the industry is still there and it's still growing. There's less less mania than there was a year ago, and maybe some people that were more opportunistic have now pivoted to AI. No, it's still there. It's still vibrant, and we got good teams shipping this year.
Yeah, no, that's a great point about the Asian gaming. I know casual and hardcore gaming is a lot more prevalent in Southeast Asia, and like they take it seriously. You can be making six figures playing a game. So I can imagine on top of that, if you're earning NFTs, that's gonna make it even better. So I feel like they're all looking at it, but we haven't really seen any AAA studios sort of go for it, and the community warm welcomed them. I heard a few rumors in the news about major games, but there seemed to be pushback from the communities that maybe it was too early or they were trying to financialize it too much, and like back to that balance of making sure that they're focused on the game and not just jumping on top of a fad that isn't sustainable. They need to build it in a way that it's going to be sustainable for the long term and bring value to everybody in the gaming community.
That's exactly right. And in the defense of gamers, the industry has not always treated them well, and so it's not really surprising when they're seeing monkey pictures being traded for 6 and 7 figures that they would perhaps not react well to the possibility of that coming into gaming, but they haven't really understood the possibility in the tech. And so I'm actually pretty optimistic that a few developers are going to integrate this in a very thoughtful way, which is very additive, and then people feel better about it. And I think the first major one, which was announced at GDC, so I can talk about it, is EVE Online, or CCP, the maker of EVE Online, announced that they would be doing something with NFTs. And that's a team that has been making massively multiplayer online games now. I think they're in their 3rd decade, and they very much know what they're doing, and they're community led. And so I'm absolutely certain that they're going to show people that it's a very thoughtful and value add way to do this, and over time people's perceptions will change. I'm old enough to remember that free to play for many people was just a red line. Like they saw these kind of scammy Facebook games, and they didn't want to play any free to play games. And now Fortnite and League of Legends are the 2 most popular games in the world. So people's perceptions change, but you need to deliver good products.
Definitely. Yeah, no, the perceptions change, and even after COVID started, there seemed to be a lot more people that were just getting into casual games and mobile games as well. And the hardcore people that have the full rigs set up on their major desktop computers, they're still in it, but now it's opened the doors for so many more people. And I'm curious on Mighty Bear's games. With this one, with the NFTs, is it going to be mobile, casual as well, or are you focused on the desktop?
So the game is currently actually playable in browser. So that was a deliberate choice we made to make the game as accessible as possible, so that anyone with a PC, be it Mac, PC, or even Linux, like whatever you're running, you could just play the game. You wouldn't need like a high-end rig. And there's also a mobile version coming in the next, well, I don't want to put a date on it, but the second half of this year. And so that will be Android first. We'll keep an eye on how things develop with Apple. But, Mighty Bear has always been a mobile first studio, because that's, to your point, like how you reach the most players. And so if you want to reach millions and billions of gamers, like you have to be on mobile, just like Fortnite, just like League of Legends. And so we'll be launching on mobile this year, and it'll be desktop. And it's possible we'll do like a more comprehensive kind of PC and Mac client, just like more traditional PC games, but the priority right now is mobile.
Good to know. And I'm curious if there's a plan, after the launch, in terms of the retention of gamers, making sure that everyone just doesn't get excited in the first month and then people stop, because maybe it wasn't fun enough, or I don't know, the financial side of the NFTs, gets exciting, but then it doesn't get as profitable, or people just don't really jump in. How are you going to balance with all of these games? What's the plan for, is it 1 year, 5 year roadmap, looking down, making sure that the game, supersedes for a long time?
Yeah, that's a consideration for every game developer. What you'll find is that more junior or less experienced game developers will just focus on the core game, so the game that you jump into for 5, 10, 20 minutes at a time. But I think you just called it out. Like, retention has to come first, and if you want retention, you have to start thinking about the metagame, which is progression and crafting and all the stuff that sits outside the game. And so for us, like, we know we can make a very, very solid and very fun core gameplay experience. And so I'd say that from a product perspective, maybe 70-80% of my time is spent thinking about the metagame and thinking about systems that will scale and keep people playing for 5, 10, 15 years.
That's great to know. And what is the best way to look at the NFTs that you mentioned that are already out, and where's the main community to join to learn more about the next updates?
Yeah, so you can join us on Twitter, which is @PlayMightyHero for all our updates, and that also has links to the NFTs in our Discord. Our Discord's pretty lively as well. And yeah, if you check us out on OpenSea, you can find the Big Bear Syndicate and the Mighty Net Genesis Pass. There aren't very many Genesis passes, so you may have a bit more luck with the Big Bear Syndicate, because we only made 1337 Genesis passes, and they were given out to friends of the bear. But occasionally the odd one pops up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Simon. I'm going to put those links in the description box below as well. All the best with everything moving forward on the main launch of the game, and we should definitely follow up in after Q2 on the next steps for Mighty Bear to hear the latest updates. So I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for the insights into gaming, and all the best with everything moving forward.
Thank you so much for your time, Ashton.